My friends, hello, I'm back on this channel. I needed a little vacation. So, to start, let me remind you of the rules. You have the phone number, the WhatsApp number that I'll put on the video during editing, but also in the pinned comment. So, for WhatsApp, you send me your questions and I'll answer them either directly or through a video. Since I created this WhatsApp box, I've answered thousands and thousands of people. So that's where the questions come from. That's where the topics for this channel come from. Today, we're going to talk about a pretty crucial topic, very political, and one that comes up often. So people tell me this, my ideas are rejected by my company. I put forward ideas that seem brilliant to me, that seem interesting to me, and then management tells me, yes, we'll talk about it later, offline. All right, he never gets back to me. Or send me an email. Okay, I send an email. 2 weeks later, did you read my email? Yeah, I'll get back to you later, okay? And then nothing happens. What's the problem? Why are your ideas being rejected? In this video, I'm going to explore the issues. So there are two problems actually. One of them might be related to you. That can happen. I'll tell you about it in a moment, and you'll look into it yourself to see if that's the case. But also know that there's something completely impersonal. There's a problem that has absolutely nothing to do with you. I'll give you an example. You know that before the creation of the company Apple, the company that makes iPhones, iPads, and other devices, well, that company, which is valued today at several $billion, was basically founded by Steve Jobs, who was a former employee of Atari. Atari used to make game consoles. It made games for those places where there were big machines, where people would put in coins and come to play on screens. And then there was Steve Wozniak. Steve Wozniak, he worked at Hewlett-Packard. You know that in Silicon Valley, in California, they say that if you haven't worked at Hewlett-Packard, you've never worked in tech. Never in information technology. Actually, if you look at almost everyone, all the names, all the big names, the well-known names in tech, have at some point in their lives worked at Hewlett-Packard. Maybe that's not a coincidence. It's such an important big company with so many people coming and going. People come and go. Sooner or later, someone with many years in tech ends up working for or being absorbed by Hewlett-Packard. Anyway, back to our story. When Steve Wozniak came up with the idea for the Apple, for the Macintosh, who did he propose it to at first? He first suggested it to Hewlett-Packard. How did Hewlett-Packard respond? They said no. He proposed it 5 times, and 5 times they rejected his offer. No, we're not interested in that. What's this thing? Also, another story. Do you know Palo Alto Networks? Palo Alto, really big company. I think this one, if I'm not mistaken, must be valued around $150 billion, which means it's a mega company. Well, Palo Alto Networks was created by someone who worked at Juniper. He worked there. And then, of course, at some point, he offered them some ideas. He had ideas for network security systems, more advanced and developed for the next generation. They said, no, stay there and go back to your place. Send me an email afterwards. What did he do? He started his own company. His company is valued at over $140 billion. Juniper doesn't exist anymore, Juniper. Well, they were bought by Hewlett-Packard because Hewlett-Packard spends its time buying companies. They were bought by Hewlett-Packard. And the last acquisition valuation, which are usually premium valuations, was $14 billion. That means an employee whose ideas were rejected left. He created a company that became bigger, 10 times bigger than them, with just one idea. All right? Myself, when I worked at Hewlett-Packard, I had identified a gap. I had identified a real problem. I started developing a solution. I suggested ideas, but they were rejected. They told me, no, go back to your place. We don't want any ideas. I went to work at another company where I started putting my ideas into practice. And that company was actually focused on solutions that Hewlett-Packard didn't have. Imagine 5 years later, the company I was at got bought out for $1 billion. They rejected those ideas 5 years ago, then bought them back 5 years later for $1 billion. You see what I mean? Stories like this happen every day in companies. Companies have an allergy, a resistance to new ideas. They don't want that. So why? Let me tell you, it's because it's a system. Maybe we need to go back centuries. Maybe we need to go back to the Victorian era where there were workers who worked in factories, who worked in coal mines, right? Who struggled in there under the watchful eyes of foremen, making sure they didn't cheat the boss. By sending, for example, carts that are missing a little bit of coal, in that case, the foreman would completely erase the whole cart from his notebook. He doesn't count it. Even if it's missing just 50 grams on a cart that weighs 400 kilos, what he'll do is not count it for the day. That's where it comes from. It's a mentality that has persisted in the business world even to this day. I'll give you an example so you can understand that mentality. Imagine you're trying to, for example, paint your house. You're going to bring in a painter, you see. You've already chosen the paint. So you look online, you look at your friends' houses, you say, hey, my friends painted this wall purple, another one red, and then the ceiling blue. It's beautiful. Don't try this at home. So I'm going to bring in a painter to do it. The painter comes to your place. Then when he shows up with his buckets and his brushes and all that, he'll start telling you, yes, but do this, do that. What are you going to do? You're going to put him in his place. Why? Because that worker, why did you bring him in? And that's true for the painter. It's true for the cleaning lady. It's true for the mover. It's true for all the workers, for the plumber, for everyone. Why do you bring them in? Do you bring them in for their ideas? No, you bring them in to carry out your ideas. That means it's you who brings the ideas. They're there to act. So when people have ideas, but they don't know how to execute them, like someone, for example, wants to create a program, but they've never written a line of code in their life, he's more of an investor. So what is he going to do? He's going to bring in programmers. And what does he want the programmers to do? He wants them to implement his idea, not bring their own ideas. All right? They're not paid for that, you see? So this phenomenon of hierarchy, Victorian, literally, where you have the worker at the bottom of the ladder who has to carry out other people's ideas. Because ideas are noble in a way. Because, I was telling you, in the Victorian era, we had and even before that, we have the foreman who is at the factory or in the mine. We have the worker who works, but where is the owner? The owner, he's not there. The owner is busy doing politics, doing philosophy, doing arts, doing noble things. You see, you'll never see the owner doing foreman's work, The foreman, what are the foremen today? Well, they're descendants of the middle management. It's the average management. It's typically 1+1. It's the average management that's there. They come from the foreman, and then what's their goal? Their goal is to keep the workers, the executors on a leash and make sure everyone does their job. What they're asked to do is to follow orders. So when a worker comes in and starts to say, what about that? I've identified a problem, a gap in our performance, in our tools, in our solutions, in the market, in our alignment with the competition, all of that. They'll look at you and say, okay, well, go back to your office, please. Okay, we'll talk later. Come back, all right? Why? Because those people don't have the depth. Those people weren't chosen for their depth of vision. And they're not capable of understanding what you're saying. So your idea, what you can do, you can go, I don't know, you can go outside on a rainy day. You'll find a toad by the side of a highway. Lie on the ground and share your idea. See how it responds. Okay? He won't understand it any better than your average middle manager understands it, okay? Exceptions exist in everything, of course, but I'm discussing general rules. Thousands of you are watching this video. Generally speaking, what I'm saying applies to you. I'll admit, sometimes someone approaches me and says, yes, I'm an exception. There's no problem. I admit that there are exceptions, but this won't change the general rule. So there's a hierarchical system that stifles ideas. So companies by nature don't want workers' ideas. So let me say something, by the way. I'll make a side note. just between us. You know that the idea is Bitcoin. The idea is the most important thing there is. Because you come up with an idea. You know, there are people. I met someone who had worked with Marcel Dassault in France. He said a guy used to follow him and record all his ideas. And he did. This old gentleman he told us that he had 100 ideas a day, out of which 99 were genius ideas. Well, not all of us have 99 genius ideas a day. One genius idea every 6 months is enough. And honestly, you can go really far in life even with just one genius idea every 6 months. Okay? The idea is very important. Those who have ideas, if you have a brain that thinks, that creates, that compares, that analyzes, you might even tend to despise your own ideas. I'm not saying you despise them, maybe that's not the right word, but you don't give them their true importance. I'm even accusing you of throwing them to the pigs. I'm telling you that your ideas, you don't consider them at their true value. That you go to some idiot of an N+1, a descendant of a mine foreman from the Victorian era. You go to him and talk to him about your idea, and he tells you, go back to your desk. You see what I mean? It's not worth it. If you have an extraordinary idea, do you know what you can do with it? You might be the next millionaire. Because all great fortunes. How was Apple created? How was Palo Alto created? The guys who founded WhatsApp. Do you know the guys who founded WhatsApp? WhatsApp today belongs to the Meta Group, the company that owns Facebook. You know that WhatsApp was bought by Meta or by Facebook a long time ago. I think it was about $20 billion. You know that the guys who created this company were rejected by Yahoo. What's Yahoo in this equation? Yahoo, I even wonder, I'm being very honest with you, I wonder if that site even still exists. All right? And if someone replies to me in the comments and tells me it exists, I just want to know, why does it still exist? All right? They refused. They refused the creators of an app that is now, in fact, the global app people use to communicate. That's it. Billions of users. It was rejected by Yahoo. Okay? And stories like that, I can give you a dime a dozen. There are plenty of them. If one night you have nothing to do, start Googling. You'll see how many ideas were rejected but later made people millionaires. So I'm telling you, don't even get to the point where your idea is rejected, okay? Don't even throw it to the pigs. If you think you have an excellent idea, think about it. First question, can this idea become a startup? That's how startups are born. They aren't born any other way. A startup is nothing more than an idea. It's a gap that has been identified. Something's missing. A piece of the puzzle is absent. Missing in a process, missing in a technology, missing in a market for users, for companies in B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter. Something that's missing. That's an idea. You can use it to launch your startup. All right? Don't throw it to the pigs. Okay, so that was the first side note. The other reason now why your ideas might be rejected, let me tell you. They might be rejected because it's for you. It's because it comes from you. It's simple, it comes from you. Look, back when I told you that we rejected an idea, a solution that was extremely well developed, I didn't just bring an idea, I brought a proof of concept. I had already built a solution that was, at the time, very advanced, but it still needed work. I needed help. I needed to convince people that we could go further. I was casting pearls before swine, doing extra work for people without any increase in salary or compensation. It's like if I took 1,000 euros like this and started running after someone in the street saying, here, 1,000 euros, take it. Go away and leave me alone. I want peace and don't want to hear from you. But please, take 1,000 euros. That's what chasing people with ideas is like. So I was saying that at the same time, someone had released a micro version of my idea. That means he had created My idea was that I had developed a code base with tens of thousands of lines. He created something in one evening that simply displayed a table. But honestly, I assure you, my program would generate PDFs of 30 or 40 pages of extremely detailed analyses. His creation would email a small table like this. You know, it circulated through the whole company to applause. and saying how great it is, how extraordinary it is. Of course, it didn't go any further than that. Then it died a natural death, okay? Mine too. When I left, I erased everything. So just to tell you that sometimes people don't appreciate you. And when they don't appreciate you, what they want is to keep you in your place. Because if you start giving ideas to the company and those ideas get developed, used, approved, and funded, you see? Well, that's going to boost your profile. Whereas maybe we don't want to boost your profile. Maybe we want you to stay in your corner, or maybe your manager or their boss does. There you go. And the people around him want you to stay where you are. Be an executor. Do your job and keep quiet. Come in on time, leave on time, and just work. Don't bother us, okay? To put it nicely. That means you're being held back in a restrictive environment that's too small for you. So what you're doing is you're there looking for money because it lets you pay your bills and all that. That's fine, but you're being held back. You're worth much more than those people. If your ideas are always rejected, you have two options about your worth. Well, also, what I said at the beginning of the video is that your company is allergic to ideas, just like 99.9% of companies. Now, there are people who might come and tell me, because sometimes there are executives, sometimes CEOs, C-levels, owners of big companies and all that, who come to me, who contact me on this number. Do you know what they tell me? They say, we never wanted that. But you know, that's not really what we want. We're aware of what you're saying. We agree. We're not denying that what you're saying is true. I assure you that's not what we want. Well, yes, my friends, that's not what you want. Well, in that case, book one. I'll also put the calendar in the link for you. Book a consulting session and we'll talk about it, all right? It might be a much deeper problem. So, as I was saying, in that case, you have two options, my friend. First option, get out of there, leave. Well, actually three. First option is you say nothing, you do your job, you keep quiet. Why bother with them? Leave them. Let them deal with their own mess. Let them think, why bother with those people? That's option one. You do your job, you go home, that's it. But you're limited. If you're limited, you lose your potential. Because it's potential that's not being used. Potential that's not being used is a loss. Okay, so another option is to join a different company where your ideas are valued. You'll need to take a higher position there, which may better fit your ideas. Otherwise, it's pointless. You may encounter similar limits elsewhere. Third option, in my opinion, the best, but you must be bold and fearless. It's to create your own company and use your brain, your neurons for yourself, for your own sake. You see? There you go, my friends. Thank you for listening to this video up to this point. WhatsApp is open for questions. Please send your questions. Some people write to me and say, "Hi Aldo, can I ask a question?" If everyone does that, it doubles the number of messages. You see? Just ask your question directly. Don't ask if I can answer. Just ask, okay? You send it, okay? You take WhatsApp, you send it directly. People tell me, can I send voice messages? Yes and no. Half of the voice messages we get are inaudible. Music in the background, a barking dog, wind noise recorded by the side of a highway, recorded with the television on. I'm not going to go and separate audio tracks and analyze and clean them up just to listen to it, okay? That's not going to happen. If I click and see that the sound is terrible, I'm not going to listen to it. Notice a detail when recording on WhatsApp. Look closely. A line with dots like this means your sound is too low. Maybe your earbuds aren't working properly or something similar. So make sure your sound is perfect. If your sound is perfect, I have no problem. I'll listen to it. If your sound is bad, I won't listen to it. Okay? Preferably text me. That'll save me the trouble of having to listen to messages and giving up because they're just too hard to hear. And I'll see you in the next video. See you very soon.